Join me as I dive deep into my personal journey and face the challenge of overcoming the emotional damage that almost wrecked my marriage. Emotional damage in relationships is a real thing, and it can be incredibly destructive if left unchecked. It can creep up on you slowly, eating away at the foundation of your relationship until suddenly you're standing on shaky ground, wondering how you got there. That's exactly what happened to me, and it nearly ruined my marriage. Looking back, I can see that the emotional damage in our relationship started with small things. My partner and I would have these tiny disagreements that seemed insignificant at the time, but they would leave these lingering feelings of resentment and frustration. We'd brush them off, thinking we were fine, but really we were just storing up emotional baggage waiting to explode. And explode it did, into full-blown arguments and weeks of silent treatment. It was like we were two strangers living in the same house, barely holding on to the threads of our relationship. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing when the next blow-up would come. And even when we were getting along, there was this underlying tension, this feeling that we were just waiting for the other shoe to drop. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, and it started to take a toll on my mental health. I felt like I was losing myself in the process, like I was disappearing into this toxic dynamic. But the worst part was, I didn't even realize we were in trouble. I thought this was just how relationships were, that this was normal. It wasn't until I started to really reflect on our interactions, on the way we were communicating, that I realized we were stuck in this vicious cycle of emotional damage. And that's when I knew we needed to make a change. One of the most significant experiences that sticks out in my mind is when we went on a weekend getaway to try and reconnect. But even on that trip, we ended up getting into this huge fight, and I just broke down, feeling like I was at my wit's end. That's when I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly feeling on edge, constantly feeling like I was failing. And that's when I knew I needed to take action, to start making some serious changes. In that moment, I felt like I was staring into the abyss, wondering if our marriage was even worth saving. But I knew I had to try, for myself, for my partner, and for our relationship. So I started to dig deep, to really examine my own emotions, my own actions, and my own role in this toxic dynamic. And that's when I started to realize I wasn't alone in this. My partner was just as trapped, just as stuck as I was. I remember having this conversation with my partner where we both just broke down, and for the first time, we were completely honest about how we were feeling. We talked about our fears, our insecurities, and our deepest desires. And in that moment, something shifted. We started to see each other, to really see each other, and that's when the healing began. The moment I realized the impact of emotional damage was the moment I started to take responsibility for my own actions. I started to recognize the patterns of behavior that were contributing to this toxic dynamic, and I started to make changes. I started to communicate more openly, more honestly, and more vulnerably. And slowly but surely, our relationship started to transform. It's not easy, and it's definitely not a straightforward process. There are still times when we struggle, when the old patterns of behavior resurface. But the difference now is we're aware of them. We can recognize when we're slipping back into those old ways, and we can make a conscious effort to change. We've learned to be kinder, more compassionate, and more understanding towards each other. And that's made all the difference. The key takeaway from my journey is that emotional damage is real, but it's not impossible to overcome. It takes hard work, dedication, and a willingness to confront your own demons. But the reward is worth it. A stronger, healthier, and more fulfilling relationship. If you're struggling with emotional damage in your own relationship, I want to hear from you. Share your experiences in the comments below, and let's support each other on this journey towards healing and growth. See you in the next video.